Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Swiss Cyber Forum. The Swiss Cyber Forum builds competence and helps the Swiss community and its members to mitigate the cyber risk associated with digitalization. Therefore, we would like to welcome you to our online roundtable today. And I have very prominent guests. Before I introduce you to the guests, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Samir Aliyev. I'm co-founder founder and the CEO of Swiss Cyber Forum, where we bring the individuals and experts from academic world, public and the private sector, and we build a unique cybersecurity community in Switzerland. We have two panelists today. Our first panelist is Dr. Alina Matyukhina. Dr. Alina Matyukhina is a cybersecurity manager at Siemens Smart Infrastructure Global Headquarters in Zug. And in her role, Dr. Matyukhina is responsible for ensuring that products and solutions for smart buildings meet the requirements of cybersecurity standards while supporting the needs of the users and stakeholders. Previously, she has worked as a cybersecurity researcher at the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity and Swiss Federal Institute for Technology in Lausanne. She holds a PhD degree in computer science, and we are very happy to welcome you here, Alina. And our next guest is Dr. Philippe Beato from World Economic Forum. He is an experienced professional in cybersecurity and digital innovation strategy with PhD degree in engineering, and he has also a CISSP certificate. All the cybersecurity specialists know about it. Filippo currently is working as a project lead industry solution at the platform for shaping the future of cybersecurity and digital trust at the World Economic Forum. Previously, Filippo has been a consultant at Digital Boston Consulting Group, focusing on digital and cybersecurity strategy and innovation. So before we start the presentation and the questions, I would like to remind you some housekeeping rules. You can ask your question anytime using the Q&A button on the bottom of your windows and send us your questions. We will be very happy to answer all your questions. And please keep in mind that our session is recorded and we will share it later on social media channels. And right now we are also live on YouTube. We have YouTube live broadcasting. First 20 minutes we will spend, first half an hour we will spend on presentation from Alina and Felipe. Later on we have a lot of questions and we will get also your questions to answer them, to have a round table discussion with you. So that's all from my side. I would like to invite you, Alina, for the presentation. Please start your presentation and later on we will go to Felipe and then Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Samir, for such a nice introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this working group meeting. And I'm very happy to introduce you to the topic of cybersecurity, of smart infrastructures, and also discuss with you current challenges which industry facing right now and how to solve them. So let me share a screen with you and we can get started. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
Great, awesome. So, the main question. So what is exactly smart infrastructure and why infrastructure should be smart? Just look around. So population, cities, they're growing faster than ever. For example, right now we have near 8 billion people, they're living on the earth today. And it's predicted that this number will increase to 10 billion people by the mid of the century. Also, if you look back the days like 200 years ago, only 3% of all population they lived in cities. But right now, what we see? Right now, we see that most of people, they are choosing cities for their life. So more people, they becoming urban. So in such a rapid urbanization, and let's not forget about other global trends, um, for example, climate change, globalization, digitalization, especially right now in this time where people, they are working from home, a lot of companies, they're going digital. So the current infrastructure, they already reaching their limits. And we need a new way of thinking about infrastructure. As you can see, there is a high demand of, for example, such resources, clean water, housing, electricity, and this demand, of course, increase the supply. So we need a new way of thinking about infrastructure. We need smart infrastructure, which can intelligently connect the inner energy system, buildings, and industry. Of course, with the purpose, we have one purpose to improve and enhance how we live and work. So this transformation, I would say, target buildings completely. So buildings, before they were just buildings. Um, they had just basic operation, for example, lighting and heating. But right now, buildings, they becoming more smart. So they becoming more integrated and interconnected. Why there is a kind of transformation? Because of course buildings, they want to improve, for example, to comfort people, occupants in who is living in the buildings, or for example to improve energy efficiency. So this transformation target buildings completely. And when buildings, they are connecting to smart grids, buildings, they becoming an active part of smart cities. So, but what kind of devices and systems exist in smart buildings? So I would say there are mainly three types of hardware you can find in the buildings. So there is sensors, actuators, and controllers. For example, a sensor, it can be like a thermostat. It measures the temperature and then sends this raw data to controller. And controller, usually it's a very smart device which can analyze and look on this raw data and understand this is a temperature. Then it can look on the outside condition and analyze it. For example, the temperature should be increased or decreased in the room. So it sends this command to actuator who is actually doing the things. Then I would say all these devices, they communicate between each other using OT, operational technology protocols. Specifically, it's a building protocols like BACnet, Modbus, and so on. And if we want that this device communicate to the cloud or can be accessible from cloud, we need, of course, another devices in the buildings. We need cloud gateways who can translate these building protocols to IT protocols. Also, we have management stations in the buildings where people, they can send commands and control the devices. So a lot of happening right now in our industry. We see that the first market trend, which is very relevant to buildings, smart buildings, it's a cloud connection. So all these devices, they are becoming connected to the cloud. And another market trend, for example, we can see that we are moving from one point of connection to multiple point of connections. So we have more IoT devices present in the buildings. What it means? So before, for hackers to attack the building, they had to find a vulnerability in the management station, which usually connect to the cloud. But right now, all these IoT, even constrained devices like thermostats, they are connecting to the cloud. So now all these devices have to be protected. And this actually requires a lot of security and rethinking about the system concept of cybersecurity. So another market trend which we can see in smart building industry is the convergence between IT and OT networks. So before, our devices, they were operational technology devices with a little slice of informational technology. I would say it's mainly IP addresses, network submasks, also gateway addresses. That's it. But right now, as we can see that we are bringing more IoT devices in the buildings. We have cloud connection. So these two words, they merge with each other. And if you just think about these two words, so they were really existing so they were not connected to each other before, and they had their own life. There is so much difference between two words. For example, IT deals with information, OT deals with machines. Also, the number of IT devices. How many phones do you have? Maybe you have only one phone and only one computer. So the number of these IT devices equal to the number of people. But if you think about in the airports, how many sensors exist, controllers in the airports, it's like millions of them. So of course, the number of these operational technology devices, they are much higher than number of people. Also, I would say that the IT devices, they have enough power and data bandwidth, but OT devices, they have very limited power. For IT, for example, systems, of course, confidentiality of the data is a main priority. But for OT world, they really care about to keep a system up and running. So another common difference, I would say, in the life cycle. If, for example, you have phone, yes, and maybe you will use your phone only 3 years, from 3 to 5 years, and then you will change for like a new iPhone. But for OT world, it's a very different situation. It cannot be changed so easily because the sensors, they can be located in a sailing wall. So you really need to break a wall to change this sensor. Of course, it will like never happen that the building owner will break this wall every year. So of course, the life cycle of these devices is much longer, from 15 to 20 years. What it can actually mean? It means that we are dealing in our operational technology with really old hardware, with limited CPU and power. And just imagine you have this kind of devices and you are making them connected to the internet, okay? And then you think about, okay, if they're connected to the internet, you need to bring cybersecurity. So you want to use all these best practices which exist in IT security world. But you cannot do it. Why? Because, for example, current ciphers and encryption, they take so much CPU and power that you cannot just install easily in this kind of hardware, old hardware devices. So this is, I would say, one of the main challenges in our industry. So we need to actually adapt, take best practices from IT security world and adapt to our operational technology world. Okay, so how actually it looks like the threat landscape currently? So I would say that in 19th, hackers, they were implementing this and creating malware just for fun. And then after 2004, they understand that they can actually get some money from these cyber attacks. So that's why they started to target financial industries and also, for example, banks. And after that, I would say cyber attacks, they were very concentrated and have governmental interest, political interest, and military. That's why, for example, hackers, they started to manipulate with the president election after 2008. After 2012, cyber attacks, they becoming more sophisticated and complex. And right now, they are started to target actually operational technology. So with the purpose, for example, to damage operational processes and also, for example, just to shut down the whole like power plant. Of course, they started to target smart buildings. So in smart buildings, we can see there are a lot of cyber attacks happening right now. And so bad actors, they are exploiting vulnerabilities in new and existing installation. For example, they are manipulating with building operations by using remote attacks and malware infection. Or they can actually make a building device unaccessible at all. For example, if they succeed to install a fake firmware on the device. Or, for example, if they are doing DDoS attack, as you know, like sending a lot of traffic to the device, and if device doesn't have a protection against DDoS attack, it can actually break. Then, for example, ransomware. Before it was only, I would say, present in IT world, like they locked a computer and encrypted all the all the data on the computer. But right now we see that ransomware actually target devices. So it locks the device and then asks to pay ransom to be able to get access back to this device. Another very common threat vector we can see in the smart buildings, it's social engineering, like phishing. For example, attackers, they use phishing emails to get access to building networks and building systems, and vice versa, I would say. They are using our devices, for example, systems to get access to enterprise, to steal some data. Maybe you know there were a case, it was really all over the news, all around the world, about that North America casino was hacked by internet connected thermostat in aquarium. Just think about internet connected thermostat. So they used vulnerability in this thermostat to get access to enterprise and steal all the data like about casino players. So this is actually happening right now. And what kind of damage can cyber attacks make on the buildings? For example, they can manipulate with lighting systems. They can switch off the lights in the surgery room, for example, and of course it will bring a critical infrastructure during operation. In hotel, for example, if attackers they manipulate with the access control and also heating, they can actually bring panic a house in the hotel. In a data center, for example, they can actually shut down the whole data center if they manipulate with HVAC systems. You know that, of course, these computers systems in data center, they are producing a lot of heat. So if you don't have a HVAC there, it doesn't work. Of course, it will be overheating. So I would say that hackers, they could take down a whole city because if you think about buildings, of course, it's like one of the main part of smart cities. And I would say, yeah, it sounds very scary, but the main problem here that it's really happening right now. So there were a case in Finland when hackers they used DDoS attack to take down the heat plant. So near 60,000 of people they were left in cold during winter. Another case, for example, in Austrian hotel, hackers they could manage to lock the doors, and of course it created panic. Also another case in Los Angeles, in the hospital, there were ransomware attack. So all the emergency patients, they had to be delivered to another hospital. So yeah, I mean, this is really what is our world looks right now. So of course, there is increasing threats and cyber attacks. Of course, it trigger regulators all over the world to create cybersecurity laws and regulations. So only in this year, I would say we see a really increase in cybersecurity laws and regulations for especially critical infrastructure. For example, there is a California IoT bill which says that so if you want to install the device in critical infrastructure, manufacturers, they should provide a means to change, so people, they can change passwords after the first use. So this is a law about. Then there is also California Privacy Act, which is very similar to GDPR, which we have in Europe. Also, there is a new cybersecurity law regulation about IT Security Act in Germany. It's a draft only, but I think in future it will become actually a law which targets critical infrastructure. So you can see that these laws and regulations, they are not only in national level, yes, but also we can see that a lot of laws, they're happening even in regions. And the trend, of course, we will see the increase of these regulations in future. So what actually companies can do to protect their assets? For example, a lot of organizations, they follow defense in depth concept. So it's like building multiple layers of security. I would say, I think it's much easier to imagine if you, for example, you want to protect your house, yes, and for example, the first layer of defense will be to lock the door from your house. It's the first layer. Then the second layer, you can install, for example, alarm system. So it will trigger alarm if there is intrusion. So it's a second layer of defense, and so on. So the same, it's working in our smart infrastructure, smart buildings industry, this defense in depth concept. So we have like three main parts: building security. So we need to protect physical access, for example, by using smart cards, or network security, which is more about about separation and segregation of the networks, and also installing firewalls and VPN to protect confidentiality of the data in transit. Also, system integrity. System integrity, of course, we need to think about cybersecurity as a system topic. So when we implement a solution, for example, we need to not think about like every product, yes, but we need to think about a system as a whole. So this defense in depth concept, I would say that all this building security, network security, system integrity, they should act simultaneously to protect against internal and external threats. Another approach, I would say, organizations, they are taking, it's a best practice, it's a holistic approach to security. So there are four pillars. People, they have to be educated on cybersecurity and cybersecurity attacks. Because, as you know, people, they're the weakest link in a cybersecurity chain. So the awareness for your employees, it's very important. For example, how to recognize the phishing emails, how to recognize if this link is malicious, so you don't need to click on it, you know. And this awareness can be implemented by, for example, webinars, internet trainings, online trainings, and so on. Communication also, it's very important to establish actually the culture of cybersecurity in your organization. So communication, if it's concise and clear, it helps a lot. Then processes have to be managed and have to be, it's I would say it's as important as technologies to keep processes up to date. Technologies, for example, we need to check technologies and improve them because cyber attacks, they are becoming more and more sophisticated. So we need really to lift our technologies to be able to address this increasing number of cyber attacks. So I would say that there is a key takeaways from this presentation. So the first one, of course, digital transformation brings a lot of benefits to us. Um, for example, for smart buildings, it can improve our life. So we spending 90% of our life in smart buildings. Of course, we want to feel comfortable in it, but we don't need to forget that this kind of, for example, cloud connection, IoT, they can bring cyber risks. Also, the second takeaway is that attackers, they usually target smart infrastructure because they wanted to access, for example, enterprise, or they want to damage operational processes. The third one is very important. If we want a cybersecurity future, we really need to educate and bring awareness about cybersecurity to our people, to our employees. The fourth, I would say, it's organization. They, of course, they have to implement the holistic approach to security and also follow best practices on cybersecurity. And of course, if there is incident and vulnerability process have to be in place to, for example, to release patches if there is an incident happened on the device, and so on. So now I want really to pass the word to our expert in smart grid cybersecurity. Felipe, please, your word.
Alina, thank you very much, Alina, for your great presentation. I think you covered a lot of interesting topic for our community. And I would like to just remind that Alina is also chair at Smart Infrastructures Working Group at Swiss Cyber Forum. And now I would like to give the word to Felipe, our expert, lead cybersecurity from World Economic Forum. And Felipe, thank you very much for your time.
No,
I
thank
know
you.
that you were super busy and you came across with the presentation. Thanks a lot. It's your time. Please start your presentation.
Super. I'll try to keep it short as to keep the questions running from the audience. So thanks for having me. Thanks for also Alina for the insightful presentation. So I want to give it a little bit more a short view what we work at the forum and more a macro view of the problem at working groups that we have at the forum on smart infrastructures and industrial critical infrastructures. So as you know, cybersecurity is an important it matters for smart infrastructure because they might have not only a massive economic, safety, and environmental impacts. And then if you build, and I think some examples Alina already brought, and if you take it, for example, if critical infrastructure gets damaged and it gets attacked, then the impacts might be quite large. And you take an example of the BP hack that was in 2008 that exploded one of the Mediterranean pipelines, that oil pipeline, and then you can imagine the impact it was, the environmental one, or the example in Ukraine in 2015 and then 2016 with the black energy attack that put about 225,000 people without any electricity. And if you think about electricity is actually everyone's needs, then you can actually leverage the impact on that. So it's just to stress the fact that it is important to think about because the impacts, it's not only for a single organization, but it goes also to the consumer side of things. Then you can, like, these attacks have been across the globe. And then not only this, just two examples, but they've been, if you take only the electricity industry and electricity infrastructure in the past years, they've been facing with vast numbers of attacks across the globe. with large impacts, from ransomware to worms that have blocked the critical infrastructure that are the baseline for our kind of like living environment. So within a forum, we actually discussed with all communities and our partners that most industry control systems operating in a smart infrastructure environments face like three major challenges. We face like the fact that we're running multi and phase and complex ecosystems that very complex interconnectivity and with large supply chains. So at the moment, large organizations hold more than 1,000 suppliers and providers. So they interact with third parties, which face different requirements, different overviews, and that in different maturities, which also harm your own organization in the fact that you are as protected as your weakest link. This also creates like a huge multidimensional ecosystem problem with hard consequences, because you have the fact that if one attack goes to one, you have the chain effect that more attacks get to others organizations. So you need to be very careful with that. The other part is that, as Alina said, you're not only having modern technology that's connecting to the cloud, and then it's all new with new uh, cybersecurity controls in place, but you also, in the same environment, you have proprietary technology that organizations cannot control and legacy technologies are very hard to control. This reposes a lot of interoperability and maturity and control challenges. At the same time, digitalization is growing as one of the key takeaways that was presented, and this further increased the complexity of actually controlling these systems. If you add IoT and any emerging technologies to the mixtures, even it's like expanded approach. Then the other point that is very important to note is the fact that most industries or most organizations within critical infrastructure industries still operate in a silo approach. There's the convergence from IT to OT, but they still open in two different cultures, where you have the IT, which is control IT focus and environmental control systems, and the other side, the OT, is very focused on safety. And most of the times, they don't talk to each other. And this poses a lot of risks, because what you've noticed that most of the time, some organizations push the IT control system controls to the OT world, but they forget that it's not the same environment, there's not the same capabilities, which might pose additional issues. And then the fact that one world like the OT world on operation technology is very leveraged on safety engineering. So it's very focused on safety. So it's important as well that sometimes it's better to leverage their knowledge and their experience that have been running for the past years and to include cybersecurity on it. So to the conclusion is that at the moment, when it comes to cybersecurity, and then when you're moving to cyber resilience, because you need to adapt and organizations need to accept that the risks are going to fade and you're going to be attacked, you need to understand that it's no longer safe to protect on your own home, but you must realize you need to work with your supply chain, with your neighbors, with your third, fourth parties, to in an ecosystem to kind of like work together as a whole to improve cyber resilience of the industry. So within the forum, we took that approach on saying, okay, we're moving to the paradigm shift of working on cybersecurity, where we want to protect more the knight in the Middle Ages with all the armor, to a more cyber resilience as accept the threat and just mitigate the risks based on your own priorities and business needs. And that will go for a cyber resilience approach, and then just prepare and react and mitigate faster. So be better prepared. To that, we realized that organizations in industrial control systems require three things, right? So require to have, and someone is having a construction in my building. Apologies for that. So they have to do it as a team sport. They have to implement common principles. So, for example, have board principles that support not only boards but cybersecurity practitioners to implement cyber resilience across the organization, and in collaboration with your business units and also with your third parties, share information to and also requirements across the ecosystem to talk somehow as an unified language, and also like adapt quickly to the changes, because the digital world is changing at a very quick pace, and innovation is going very quickly, and the attackers are following this curve very steep, while the defense side are still on a very slow pace and not catching up with the differences. So to terminate my views, and also the views with following and forum, is that we cannot stop only like by building this and cyber resilience. We need to keep the pace on the industrial control systems by considering different things. We need to definitely consider supply chain security. This is one of the topics that that organizations in the cybersecurity world need to consider and work together. They need to navigate the regulatory space to keep up with the pace, but also of innovation and digitalization. But also at the same time, they have to not be as a blocker. Go out from the compliance focus for the industries that are compliance driven to more control and mitigation focus. And while also you should share information to create awareness across the industry and across the ecosystems, and support and leverage not only emerging technology, but also like AI to speed up your process, but also other technologies that's coming up in universe to increase your view of the threats, and also to speed up the analysis of the process to mitigate them. And I think I went very quickly, but I think it was a goal. So I left to you for questions.
Thank you, Felipe. And we have several questions. I would like to start with the questions that we have from our audience. So first question is about, it's both of you, Alina or Felipe. What do you see as the biggest obstacle to educate of the workforce about the whole neighborhood holistic ecosystem?
Maybe I can start. So very good question. Thank you for this question. I would say that it's very important to understand who you want to educate. So there is different people, yes, in every company. For example, R&D, yes, you need to educate them on secure coding, for example. So their trainings, they have to be more complex that, for example, for product managers, they don't need to know, like, for example, how to do this penetration testing to test the product. So they need to know that there is a process. For example, for their products, they need to do threat and risk assessment, but they don't need to know this all specifics. For example, marketing people and people who is working in communication or sales, they need to know also basic information on cybersecurity. So when we can achieve this kind of understand the diversity of people in the organization, and also create a plan, you know, of, for example, educational concepts like in the trainings we can use. I think here then we will succeed.
Thanks a lot, Alina. The next question is also to you.
If I want, yeah, can I just
yes,
build
please.
up on that? I think one thing that just to build up what Alina said, one other thing is important is to give what's up for them, because a lot of our problems on education of adopting cybersecurity across organizations means, okay, you need to implement, the cybersecurity practitioners come to the business unit, say you need to implement A or B, and they say, why? And why am I actually putting that on my costs, because on my priorities, because in the end, what is in it for me? And that's a question that should be answered by the cybersecurity practitioners when talking to business, is what is it in it for them? And different business and different stakeholders might have different objectives and benefits of implementing security.
Very good. Thank you very much, Felipe. Then I would like to go to the next question. That it's not a question, actually, it's the concern. The security challenges are the major concern, and they remain the priorities of the countries around the world. As I understood, smart infrastructure or smart system is a heterogeneous set of the called large technical systems, which is vital. In this case, It plays a vital role in supporting modern society. Would you give us a little bit insight on the weaknesses and threats facing modern smart critical infrastructure with emphasis of industrial control systems, security management, transportation, water, health care, banking, and finance? Felipe.
So let me see if I understood correctly the question. So the question here is like, what are the key challenges and the issues within infrastructure, critical infrastructure?
Yeah, modern smart critical infrastructure, especially in the transportation, water, energy, healthcare, banking, and finance.
I think one of the biggest threats that I've seen is the fact that is people. Like if you take the 3 pillars for 4 pillars for holistic management, people belongs to the thing, and sometimes it's just a error, human error that comes with it. And if you look at the previous attacks, sometimes they go boil down to just a simple human error. And one thing to remediate that is to, instead of looking at specific cases, is to look at the scenarios, that navigate the full scenario base by using an intelligent driven approach and compared to a consequence driven approach, where you have not only the data to support what was done, but also the data to what was the consequences in the general support.
Very good, thanks a lot. Alina, the next question is for you. Are we too greedy with all IoT devices and in connecting the OT to the internet? Would you recommend to slow down the process of the interconnecting all together?
No, I cannot recommend this. I mean, the change, the transformation, it's already started. We cannot slow down it, if even if we want it. You know, we can only adapt on this transformation. We can only, for example, think about how, for example, adapt this IT security to our world, operational technology. You know, for example, I just so there is, for example, in our smart buildings, there is building protocols. They were, I would say, always separated before, and there were no security built in these building protocols, building networks. So a lot of, for example, how smart buildings, they were protected before. So we were building the layers of cybersecurity. For example, we like used VPNs, you know, to protect these building networks. But right now, I would say, for example, organizations which develop these kind of protocols, they understand that they really need to build, to bring these all security features inside of the protocol. So they started to implement, for example, bring TLS 1.3 already inside of the protocol, or they started to have this certificate management. For example, devices, they cannot join the network if they don't have this certificate installed in the device. You know, this X.509 certificate, which is very common to IT world. So you see, like we can only adapt, we can only take the approaches from IT world security and then adapt them to our world.
Very good. Also, the questions about the Siemens. How is Siemens catching up with cybersecurity outside the infrastructure, taking into consideration to digital risk protection?
So yeah, we are following different approaches. For example, we are following a defense in depth approach, you know, where we are thinking about how we can actually protect all the layers. For example, how you can protect from the field devices, these constrained devices, which you can see in like sensors, you know, actuators, and also via controllers, protecting controllers, also cloud security. So also, for example, we are going from physical access protection to network protection. So, you know, we are following approaches of defense in depth, also holistic security approach. And what is very important, as I'm actually in product security. So we have we enable cybersecurity in the product development. So, for example, if a product manager want to introduce a feature for its product, this feature have to be analyzed at first. If this feature cannot compromise the device, itself, the security of the device. So we are, for example, having TRAs, threat and risk assessment of this feature. Then we are doing pen tests and so on. So yeah, this is how it works at Siemens.
Great. Felipe, would you like to add something on product security? I know that you are very busy with the product security. Do you have anything on top of this?
Yeah, I think also I'll bring that question as well for Alina, because as she said, she was bringing product security. But we're doing at the forum, we came out that one of the issues is understanding who needs to do what throughout the product life cycle. So the product is produced by the OEMs per se, and then is delivered and adapt to a solution by a solution design and integration, and then commissioned to the environment organization, and then the operation phase. So who actually needs to do security across this life cycle, and this is who's responsible for it, and who needs to do what. And this has been a topic that has been a concern across industries and across organizations, because we do have a commercial issue in between, because you do have the product manufacturers that want to do as little as possible or deliver just something by warranty, and then you want the organizations adopting the product, like asset owners, to actually that want a little bit more the product. So how can I actually deliver that? And this is very important to define who's responsible for what. We'll be launching like next week at a forum or report on that. It was produced by for the electricity, and I think it's going to be very valuable, and will definitely foster the discussion more on this topic. But I think product security is very important, because if you don't have clarified responsibilities on who needs to do what, it's very hard to understand when to secure your environment. And it's very hard also. So on one side, operators like product manufacturers need to convey a guarantee security on when the product is being manufactured on their supply chain, but also need to provide the guidelines, what it means to implement or integrate this product securely. But then it's up to the asset owners to actually manage and monitor and integrate this product in a secure manner to the full environment they own. And this is it's a problem that has been running for a while, because it needs to be adopted by an holistic approach. Like Alina says, you need to understand that this need to speak the same language on what is the controls that you need to be in place, what is the approach that you need to in place needs to be similar, but also what's the baseline controls that needs to be adopted across the value chain and across the stakeholders within the industry that should be adopted for all. This not only ensures that the product security is guaranteed, but also ensures the fact that by everyone speaking in a similar language, that you elevate the maturity across an industry and across an ecosystem by putting everyone implementing a baseline level. This is also, again, very hard, because it's some information. This requires information sharing, and goes back to what I mentioned. This collaboration at certain points, and we are not alone, because you are protected as your weakest link.
Right. Yeah. So since we are talking on the products, there's another question about product development, especially IoTs. In the near future, do you see the security, especially cybersecurity, becoming a requirement in the development of the IoT devices, like the regulation for the IoT devices? Especially, Alina had just mentioned that in California, there is already bill, but do you think that, is there any process in Europe?
Oh yes, oh yes. There is started in Germany. There is Cybersecurity Act. The draft it was published. The second draft was published this year, and it says a lot of requirements how security have to be built inside of the product if you want to sell to critical infrastructure. And as soon as it will be already published as a law, I think a lot of manufacturers, they would need to really to go to look how they manage secure development. of their products. And I would say before we are waiting that cybersecurity laws and regulations, they will be published, of course, manufacturers, they are currently following best practices and also standards. For example, for our industry as a building products, the standards is IEC 62443. So we are developing the products based on this standard. Actually, if to look deeper in the standard, it's the purpose is for industrial control systems. So every, I would say, organization, they adapt the standard, of course, based on their needs, based on the vertical you are targeting. So the standards have to be adapted, but there is no standard like specifically, let's say, for smart building products. There is also standards for IT systems. For example, ISO 27000, it's very common if you are dealing with IT systems, or for cloud, or WASP. Or WASP provides a really good recommendation how to protect cloud connected devices.
Very good. And exactly, we had the two questions on this topics, the NIST, ISO, and other standards. Also, do you advise a lightweight InfoSec for startups? Do you recommend it?
Lightweight InfoSec?
Lightweight InfoSec. I don't know exactly what's the meaning. Maybe they can write the detailed information. Then I will go to the next question. How can you make cybersecurity not just an engineering technical problem, but really get the management buy-in for sustainable measures and a culture shift, the security culture? How can we build up this, that cybersecurity doesn't belong on the engineers, especially it belongs to the management and all the people in the company? What are the main bullet points on the buy-in, management buy-in?
Is that for me, or Alina, you want to take it?
Yeah. Feel free.
I think there's several, and at the moment, I think cybersecurity is no longer an engineering problem. I think cybersecurity, if you take the pillars of people, process, technology, and governance, technology is only 20% of the issue. All the rest is the people, the process, and the governance. So it needs to be at the management level. And a lot of organizations, and then I've learned that from the forum as well, partners, is that senior leadership is buying in. We just, the issue that we have is how can you actually support them to cyber resilience? There's several ways of doing it. We need to make distillate the kind of like guiding principles to supporting them to act on cyber resilience, but also we need to improve the communication between the practitioners on this engineer side with the board. And at the same time, we need to bridge both. And I think that's the exercise you need to understand, is that no longer it is it's a communication issue, but it also is a governance issue. At the forum, we created a kind of like the board principles that was published in 2017. And this was pushed as a recommendation for boards and been used by several boards as kind of like a framework to act on cyber resilience. And by doing so, we need to show that, as proven in most of the risk reports and global risk reports, cybersecurity is one of the major global risks. So I do think this topic of going still as engineering based is no longer based, because it's an overall based. And the organizations are shifting, from my experience, is shifting, and the boards are talking about cybersecurity. And we're seeing that in multiple industries, especially in industry control systems like electricity, oil and gas, and all this energy, because the impact for them is actually very large if they don't do something about it.
Yeah, I can confirm, definitely. Like, we have meetings with management, once in 2 weeks. So yes, exactly. They are caring about cybersecurity.
Very good to hear that. So next question, actually we have a lot of questions, but we have limited time. I will go the faster. How would you approach your supply chain in respect of security? Requesting audit or certification, for example?
I had this
supply chain.
Yeah, I had that discussion like a few hours in a meeting with a working group, and there's several ways of adopting that. There's several ways, and I think you can evaluate your third parties or your suppliers in different ways, but it depends on how much level of depth and how much of criticality of your assets are. So there's several ways like scoring ratings, there's shared assessments, there's internal audits and questionnaires and certifications. You need to analyze how much you want to do in a timely basis and continuous not, and also how scalable it is and how depth. I think there's these two levels like horizontals that you need to count, because certifications are quite, if you say they're quite in depth, but they happen once a year, and you don't know what's happening between the year within. You cannot follow up. So you might need to follow up and monitor by using different techniques and different methods to improve your visibility on the supply chain. And this is kind of like how can you evaluate? And to evaluate them, I think you need to also agree an industry specific baseline of requirements and holistical view. Because if everyone, and I'm sure at Siemens happens, every time they go to a client and they receive a list of requirements, they go to another client, it goes to another requirements, and they go to, and this doesn't help anyone. And it just, so that you have this harmonization that by having a baseline that doesn't cover 100%, but probably 60% of the requirements, and the other are specific for the organization, will definitely help the industry, one, scale up the velocity, but also improve the maturity of cybersecurity.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we need really standards, so they can tell like these common requirements which can be for supply chain, because if, for example, one company will invent one set of requirements, another set of requirements, it will never end, So that's why cybersecurity laws and regulations, standards, it's very important.
Very good. Thanks a lot. The next question. While cutting-edge technologies such as AI and other technologies can help fight unpredictable attacks, what new security strategy do you recommend to manage information security, data security in the post-COVID world? Is there any specific security strategy would you recommend?
Post-COVID.
Especially for data, for personal data and data security that will be highly demandable.
Oh, I would say yes, of course. Post-COVID. I think we are living right now in COVID time. So, there is, of course, more remote connections right now, and if we are looking on smart buildings. Of course, we can see that a lot of devices are connected to the cloud. So for building operators and building managers, they don't need to go on site and risk their lives if there is some problem on this device. So they can manage this device from cloud. So cloud security is very important. And about cloud security, I cannot say a lot because I'm not expert there. Maybe Felipe, you?
No, I think like there's a couple of things like on the post-COVID. I think you're definitely moving to a different environment, and I think the new normal is here to stay, right? So I think we are in a new normal. We need to adapt to it, and this increased definitely the threats of the attacks. And we actually did a nice analogy on that. We compared the spread of a cyber threat or a cyber attack with COVID. So what happens? What's the comparison of spreading cyber and the impact of a cyber virus compared to a COVID virus? And it is a pandemic, so you do have that. And the second thing, you can definitely leverage AI. AI is one of the most talked emerging technologies to improve this. And I do think you can leverage. And I'm sorry about the background noise.
That's fine.
Yeah, AI. Maybe I can continue this topic, as I was doing PhD actually in AI security. I would say AI, it can be used to secure, your, for example, assets, but it can also you can, for example, hack the AI. So there is kind of adversarial artificial intelligence. For example, you are putting a lot of fake data on your, for example, data set, and it can produce different results. So AI can be fact, and this is, I would say, it's a huge trend right now. A lot of researchers, they are working how to stop this, because like AI is used everywhere. For example, smart cities, a lot of data is generated from smart devices, and then we are using AI to process this data and predict what is happening in the future. Yes, so if hacker will be able to attack the AI system, it can predict differently. For example, lights, they will turn red when they need to turn green, you know. So for example, smart devices, they can switch like I don't know, let's say heating HVAC, yes, when we need this HVAC. So yes, AI is a very good technology, but we really need to know how to implement it in safe way.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, that's correct.
Felipe, you have said that it would have a huge impact into the ecosystem for the self-protection across stakeholders. So currently, many cybersecurity attacks are undisclosed and keep as taboo inside the company. How can we encourage companies to open up and exchange on cybersecurity attacks?
That's a hard question, because I think no company will never be transparent 100%, right? So I understand there's the economical aspect of it, there's a reputation that they want to keep. But at the same time, I think it's good to share best practices across it, because ultimately, and I'll stress, and I won't stop stressing, it's a team sport. I think cybersecurity should not be a topic to compete with, but a topic to collaborate with. And at the forum, we're trying to focus on that and foster that conversations, so that organizations can share. And most of the time, we've seen that they're willing to share on cybersecurity to improve their maturity, because ultimately they're going to collaborate with other organizations, and they should not and will not have cybersecurity as a key value proposition per se. Some have, but some others no. So it depends and how to do it. But I know it's hard. There's ISACs on a place. There's some other communities running to share their threats, and I think partnership is a key for. In collaboration is a key to improve the maturity across.
Good, very good. So, as an organization, what are the steps taken on the legal angle to keep the hackers away from the company for a long time? Are there any legal perspectives or compliance perspectives that we need to take as a company to be hacker-free?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, to be hacker-free, I think we will not be able to achieve 100% of security. You know, this is we need to keep in mind. You know, because yes, we need to be ahead of the hackers, but hackers, they will be always. You know, you just need to think about like how you can protect the best way your devices, your systems, your infrastructure. You know, so to decrease this cyber attack point.
Very good.
Yeah, if I can add, I think for me, if I can add from my experience, there's two types of companies, right? There's the ones that getting hacked, and the ones that know they're doing get hacked. I think we have to move from an approach. Organization need to move from the paradigm of cybersecurity by protecting yourselves, like the old knights in the 1500s, where they put all the armor on place, to a more like, I'll say abused, but maybe like a Jedi approach, where you more mitigate the risk, and they know that the risk is coming, but you'll kind of like be prepared to react across it.
So next one, the question is for Philippe. As you are working for World Economic Forum, how would the organization look in the future? The shortage of cybersecurity individuals as a challenge, the talent challenge. What are the future?
I think the future is that the future for the job challenge, the talent, the missing of talent per se. I think we need to leverage on different talents. Like if you build up AI, you need someone to use AI to improve cybersecurity, but you need someone that is knowledgeable on AI. You need someone from mathematical background that can actually understand and how to do the analysis on the data effectively to actually effectively use this emerging technology in favor of cybersecurity. So instead of like training cybersecurity professionals, maybe you should leverage on existing professionals on existing topics that are emerging, such as AI and so on, and maybe give them the fundamentals of security. Because I do think we can leverage on that much more than just training the other way around.
Very good. Alina, would you like to add something, or shall I go to the next question?
Yes, of course, I always can add something. I am a woman. I can talk a lot. So, I would say, based on my experience, so I came from, so I did my PhD, yes, in IT security. So I had like a network, really IT security background. But when I came to operational technology, I mean, it's another word. You really need to know OT security, you know, and now this IT and OT, they started to converge. So you really need to be an expert in IT and also expert in OT security. You know, this is a challenge to find these people who's expert in both sides. But I think in future, like, of course, we will see more experts in cybersecurity because this area is becoming really hot.
Good. Actually, we have a lot of many other questions, maybe more than 20 questions, but I think we are all over time. I would like to keep you longer here, but I know that you have other meetings and other appointments. And thank you very much, Alina. Thank you very much, Felipe. And thank you very much, our audience, that you were watching us. And stay safe. See you next time on another event. Have a nice evening.
Thank you so much for all questions. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.